Montana. 1873, the auction hall smelled like desperation and cheap whiskey. 6 mail-order brides lined up like livestock. 6 strangers who'd crossed 2,000 miles to marry men they'd never met. The bidding was brutal, efficient. $300 for the pretty one. $250 for the strong one. Cash exchanged. Lives traded, legal maybe, moral definitely not. Then came number 6. The woman who stepped onto that platform moved like she was heading to her own execution. 6'2", broad-shouldered, built like Montana herself, all strength and severity, and something the men couldn't name but feared anyway. The laughter started before Silas even called her name. Mean laughter, the kind that cuts. Silence followed. Klept absolut. Humiliating silence, no one wanted the giant. In the back corner, Jonas Graves touched the 2 silver dollars in his pocket, his last $2. The one supposed to buy cornmeal for the month. His fingers closed around cold metal and made a choice that would save them both, or destroy them trying. The auction hall smelled like desperation and cheap whiskey. Not a real auction. Not legally, just what folks called it, the introduction ceremony, where mail-order brides met their prospective husbands, where men made offers, bids in everything but name. Cash on the table. Highest sum $1. Moral definitely not. But this was Montana 1873. Morality took a backseat to survival. Jonas Graves stood in the back corner, hat pulled low, shoulders hunched against the wall, like he was trying to disappear into the wood itself. He wasn't here to bid, couldn't bid, had exactly 2 silver dollars in his pocket, and those were supposed to buy him enough cornmeal to last the month. Supposed to, but here he was anyway, watching Montana's finest examples of humanity, paw over women like they were examining horses at a county fair. 6 mail-order brides had arrived on the morning train. 6 women desperate enough to travel 2,000 miles to marry complete strangers in a territory where winter killed the weak and loneliness killed everyone else. The first bride went fast. Pretty blonde thing. Couldn't have been more than 19. Smooth hands that had never seen real work. She smiled nervous and small when the banker bid $300. 300. Jonas felt the 2 coins in his pocket. They suddenly felt lighter. The second bride fetched $250. German woman, broad shoulders, capable eyes. The kind of eyes that said she understood what hard work meant and wasn't afraid of it. The blacksmith took her, looked happy about it too. The third, the fourth, the fifth, all claimed, all purchased like furniture at an estate sale. Then came number 6, the auctioneer, Silas Pettigrew, red-faced and already drunk at 2 in the afternoon. He hesitated before calling her forward. Gentlemen, we've saved, well, we've saved the last 4. For last, laughter rippled through the crowd, mean laughter. The kind that told you exactly what was coming before you even saw it. The woman who stepped onto the platform didn't walk like the others. She moved like she was heading to her own execution. Tall, God. So tall, had to be at least 6'2", maybe more. Shoulders broad as a man's. Hands that looked like they could break fence posts. Dark blonde hair pulled back so tight it made her face look severe. Hard, angular, her dress didn't fit right. Too short in the arms, too tight across the shoulders. Like she'd outgrown it years ago, and never had money for another. She kept her eyes on the floor, wouldn't look up. Wouldn't meet anyone's gaze. Jonas understood that impulse. He'd spent 8 years doing the same thing. This here is Miss Freya Bergstrom, Silas announced. His enthusiasm had evaporated completely. Aged 26. Came all the way from. Where was it? Stockholm, she said. Her voice was low, accented, beautiful in a way that didn't match the rest of the moment. Right, Stockholm. She can read and write. Says she's good with her hands. And she's. Well, you can see she's built like a damn mountain, someone shouted. More laughter. Freya's jaw tightened. But she didn't look up, didn't defend herself. Just stood there, taking it. Jonas felt his chest tighten. Recognition, maybe, or memory. He'd stood like that once. After Gettysburg. after watching half his unit die in a wheat field that turned red with their blood. He'd stood exactly like that. "Let's start offers at $100, Silas tried. "Gentlemen may propose marriage with financial commitment to show good faith legal language." Barely everyone knew what this really was. His voice lacked conviction. Like he already knew how this would go. Silence. Complete and absolute silence. Somewhere a clock ticked. Somewhere else someone coughed. But nobody bid. Jonas watched Freya's shoulders hunch inward. Just slightly. Just enough to show that each second of silence was landing like a physical blow. 75, Silas tried again. Desperation creeping in now. "Come on, gentlemen. She's educated. That's worth something. Can she cook?" Someone called. "Can she sew? Can she birth babies without crushing them?" Laughter. Always laughter. The kind that felt like cruelty dressed up as humor. $50, Silas said quietly. Nothing. Freya's hands were clasped so tight, her knuckles had gone white. Her breathing had changed. Faster. Shallower. The breathing of someone trying very hard not to cry in public. Jonas knew that breathing too. He'd done that breathing for months after Catherine left. After she'd looked at him with something worse than hate. With pity. With disappointment. 25, Silas whispered. The room had gone uncomfortable now. This wasn't fun anymore. This was just cruel. Even the hardest men in the crowd could feel it. Someone cleared their throat. Someone else studied their boots with intense focus. But nobody bid, because nobody wanted her. Nobody wanted the giant. Jonas's hand moved to his pocket, touched the $2 silver there, his emergency fund, his buffer against starvation. His last defense against the Montana winter that was coming in 6 weeks. He should save it. He should be smart. He should walk away. Except he was looking at Freya's face now. She'd finally raised her eyes. Just for a second. Just long enough for Jonas to see what was there. Not defeat, not quite yet. Something worse, something more familiar, the desperate hope that someone, anyone, would see her as human instead of merchandise. He'd seen that look in the mirror every morning for 3 years. Going once, Silas said. His voice barely audible. Jonas's finger closed around the coins. This was insane. This was the stupidest thing he could possibly do. He needed that money, needed it to survive, couldn't afford to throw it away on. On what? On pity? On sentiment? On some misguided sense of solidarity with another broken soul? Going twice, but then again, Smart hadn't gotten him anywhere, had it? Smart had lost him everything. His wife, his dignity, his hope. Maybe it was time to try something else. Maybe it was time to try desperate $2. His voice cut through the silence like a gunshot. Every head in the room turned. Silas's mouth fell open. Someone's whiskey glass slipped and shattered on the floor. And Freya. Freya's eyes locked onto his with an expression he couldn't quite read. Then the laughter started, roaring, rolling waves of it. Men doubled over, slapping their knees, gasping for breath. $2? Did he say $2? Hell, I wouldn't pay $2 for a lame mule. Graves has finally lost mind. Mountain man buying a mountain woman. How fitting. Jonas ignored them. All of them. He was looking at Freya, and she was looking back, and in her dark eyes he saw the hope flicker brighter, for just one moment before she remembered to kill it. Silas sputtered, his face cycling through several shades of red. Now, see here, Graves. This is a human woman we're talking about, not a. $2 is my bid, Jonas interrupted. Voice steady now. That enough to meet your reserve, or do I need to find 2 bits more? The auctioneer looked helplessly at the crowd, at Freya, at his empty cash box. The organizers of these bride auctions took a commission. And even $2 was better than nothing, which is exactly what he'd get if the woman went unclaimed. This is highly irregular, Silas muttered. So is auctioning human beings, Jonas replied quietly. But here we are. A few of the laughs died in men's throats. Uncomfortable truth had that effect. Anyone else? Silas made one last attempt, scanning the crowd with desperate eyes. Anyone at all willing to bid on Miss Bergstrom? $3? Anyone? The silence that answered was absolute. Fine, Silas slumped in defeat. Sold to Jonas Graves for $2. He paused. God help you both. Jonas walked forward through the parting crowd, very aware of the eyes on him. The whispers starting to buzz like flies around a corpse. He pulled the $2 silver from his pocket, his last $2, leaving him with exactly nothing to his name, and placed them on the money box, with a solid clink. Up close, Freya was even taller than he'd thought, nearly reaching his shoulder, and Jonas wasn't a small man. Her eyes, now that he could see them properly, were a deep brown flecked with gold, and they held a weariness that went bone deep. She looked at him like he was a puzzle she didn't trust, a trap she couldn't quite identify. "Ma'am," he said, touching the brim of his hat. She didn't respond, just watched him with those careful, calculating eyes. "Mr. Graves," Silas was saying, pushing papers across the makeshift desk. "You'll need to sign here and here and—" "I can read," Jonas said shortly, scanning the documents. "Standard marriage contract, binding under territorial law, granting Freya Bergstrom to him as his lawful wife in exchange for the agreed-upon sum." His stomach turned slightly at the language. Granting. Like she was property, but he signed anyway. What choice did either of them have when he straightened? Holding out the pen to Freya, she stared at it like it might bite her. "You need to sign too," he said gently. "If you're willing," she repeated, her voice rough from disuse but cultured. "Educated." "That's an interesting word for it. You don't have to," he said, and meant it. "If you'd rather take your chances elsewhere, I won't hold you to this." "Elsewhere?" She laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Yes. My many other options." She took the pen. Her hand shook as she signed her name in neat, precise script, Freya Margaret Bergstrom. Then, after a pause, she added Graves to the end of it. Just like that, she was his wife. The crowd was already dispersing, losing interest now that the entertainment was over. Jonas heard their comments anyway. The speculation about how long she'd last. The jokes about what $2 could buy these days. The mock sympathy for the poor bastard who'd just made the worst investment of his life. "Where's your belongings?" Jonas asked. Freya gestured toward the corner where a single battered trunk sat. That was it. Everything she owned in the world apparently fit in one small trunk. Jonas picked it up. It weighed almost nothing, and nodded toward the door. "My wagon's outside." She followed him in silence, moving with that same careful precision that suggested every step hurt. How long had she been traveling? How long since she'd had a proper meal, a real bed? The Montana afternoon hit them like a wall of heat and light. After the Seleucid dimness, Jonas's wagon. And that was a generous word for the rickety collection of wood and wheels he'd cobbled together. Waited at the hitching post. His old mule, Bess, dozing in the traces. He helped Freya up onto the seat, noted how light she was when his hands circled her waist, how fragile her bones felt despite her size, like she was all height and no substance. Hollow, starving, she settled herself with that same careful precision, arranging her skirts, folding her hands in her lap, staring straight ahead at nothing. Jonas climbed up beside her and took the reins before he could signal Bess to move. A rider pulled up alongside them. Silas Blackwood sat astride a magnificent black stallion, his expensive suit dusty from the road but still marking him as the richest man in 3 counties. His smile was pleasant, but his eyes were cold as January. "Graves," he said affably. "Heard you made quite the purchase in there." Jonas's jaw tightened. "Mr. Blackwood, $2. Blackwood shook his head in mock amazement. "Have to admire your economy. Was there something you wanted?" "Just wanted to remind you that your lease payment is coming due. 90 days from today. $600. Blackwood's gaze slid to Freya, dismissive and contemptuous. "Though I suppose you won't have that now. What with spending your reserves on?" This, Jonas's hands tightened on the reins. Bess shifted nervously. "I'll have your money. I'm sure you believe that." Blackwood's smile didn't waver. "But winter's coming, Graves. Man alone can't survive a Montana winter, especially not with a ranch falling apart around his ears, and a wife who, he paused, looked Freya up and down like she was livestock. Well, a wife who'll eat you out of house and home if that appetite matches her size. Beside him, Jonas felt Freya take a careful breath. But she didn't flinch, didn't react at all. "We done here?" Jonas asked, voice low and dangerous. Blackwood studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. "For now. But do think about my offer. $500 for the land, cash. You could take your wife and start fresh somewhere else. Somewhere that doesn't require surviving the impossible." He tipped his hat with exaggerated courtesy. "Ma'am, welcome to Montana. Hope you survive it." He wheeled his horse and rode off, leaving a cloud of dust in his wake. Freya waited until he was out of earshot. "Friend of yours?" she asked dryly. Despite everything, despite the absolute disaster his life had become in the span of one afternoon. Jonas almost smiled. "Wouldn't say that? What does he want with your land?" "Timber rights. My property's got old-growth pine, the kind that fetches premium prices in California. He's been trying to buy me out for 2 years, and you keep refusing. It's my land." He said it simply. "Only thing I got left that's mine." She was quiet for a moment, then, $2 and some land. "Quite the empire you've built," he did smile then. "Brief and rueful, when you put it like that. I'm starting to see why no one else bid on you." "You've got a sharp tongue. Among my many flaws," she agreed. "I assume you'll be discovering the rest soon enough." Jonas clicked his tongue at Bess, and the old mule started forward with a resigned sigh. The town fell away behind them as they headed into open country, the late afternoon sun painting the grasslands gold and amber. They rode in silence for a while. Jonas was very aware of the woman beside him, the straightness of her spine despite obvious exhaustion, the way she watched the landscape with keen intelligence, cataloging and assessing, not admiring, he noticed, evaluating. "How far is it?" she asked eventually. "About an hour's ride. Ranch is up near the foothills." "Ranch," she tested the word. "How many cattle?" He hesitated. This was where it got embarrassing. "Don't have cattle. Got goats. 38 head. Was 42 last month but lost 4 to wolves. 38 goats is barely subsistence level, I know. And the house?" "Cabin. 2 rooms. It's solid. Keeps the weather out." He paused. "Mostly." She might have been suppressing a smile. "Hard to tell. Mostly," she repeated. "Yeah, mostly. And you're working this ranch alone?" "Was. Now there's 2 of us. 2 of us." She echoed softly. "Then, why did you bid on me?" The question hung in the air between them. Jonas considered lying, making it sound noble or calculated or anything other than what it was. But something about Freya's eyes, the way she watched him, made lying feel impossible. "Didn't seem right," he said finally. "What would have happened to you if nobody bid? So you spent your last money on pity." "Wasn't pity." He struggled to find the right words. "You were still standing. After everything, the journey, the auction, all those men laughing. You were still standing." He glanced at her. "That's not nothing." She turned to look at him then. Really look at him. "I had nowhere else to go," she said quietly. "Standing was all I had left. I know the feeling." Understanding passed between them in that moment. Not complete understanding, not yet, but recognition. 2 people who'd reached the end of their ropes and found each other dangling there. "What happened to your last wife?" Freya asked. Jonas should have expected the question. But it still hit like a punch, Catherine. "She left 3 years ago. Went to Silver Creek with a man named William Ashford. He owned half the timber mills there. She sent divorce papers 6 months later." "I'm sorry, don't be." "She was right to leave. I couldn't give her the life she wanted." "And what life was that?" "One that didn't involve choosing between fixing the roof and buying winter feed. One where she didn't have to make her own soap and wear the same 2 dresses until they fell apart." He paused. "One with possibilities." Freya absorbed this. "And what life do you think I wanted, Mr. Graves?" "Don't know, but I'm guessing it wasn't this." "No," she agreed softly. It wasn't this. The sun was sinking lower now, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. They crested a rise, and there it was, his ranch such as it was. The cabin hunched against the hillside like something trying to hide, its log walls weathered gray, one shutter hanging crooked, the roof patched in 3 places with mismatched the barn, if you could call it that, sagged to the left, clearly in need of repairs he couldn't afford. The goat pen had gaps where posts had rotted through. An old forge sat near the barn, abandoned, rusted, hadn't been used in years probably. Beside him Freya went very still. "This is it," Jonas said, hating how defeated his voice sounded. "I know it's not much." "It has walls," she interrupted. "And a roof." She turned to look at him. "That's more than I had this morning." He pulled Bess to a stop in front of the cabin, climbed down, then reached up to help Freya. She hesitated for just a moment before placing her hands on his shoulders and letting him lift her down. Up close, he could see the fine lines of exhaustion around her eyes, the way she swayed slightly on her feet. "When did you last eat?" he asked. She had to think about it. "Yesterday morning, I think. The days have blurred together. Come on." He grabbed her trunk. "Let's get some food in you." The interior of the cabin was dim and spare. One room served as kitchen, dining area, living space. A stone fireplace dominated one wall. A rough table with 2 chairs sat near the window. The bedroom door stood open, revealing a simple bed with a patchwork quilt. Freya stood in the middle of the main room, taking it all in with those assessing eyes. "The bedroom's yours," Jonas said, setting her trunk down. "I'll sleep out here." She turned to him sharply. "This is your home, and you're my wife. Legally anyway. You should have the bed, Mr. Graves." "Jonas," he interrupted. "If we're married, might as well use first names." "Jonas," she corrected herself. "I don't expect you to give up your bed for me. This is a business arrangement. We both know what this is. What is it?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "I needed a way to survive." "You needed what? Help with the ranch? Someone to cook and clean?" "We made a practical arrangement." "Is that what you think this is?" "Isn't it?" She lifted her chin defiantly, but he could see the fear underneath. The fear of hoping for anything more, and being disappointed. Jonas moved to the fireplace, began building a fire. "Giving himself something to do with his hands, I think," he said carefully. "That we both needed something we couldn't name. I think we're both running from things we don't talk about." He struck the flint, watched sparks catch the kindling, "and I think we just made a promise to each other in that saloon. Whether we meant to or not, a promise to try, to not give up, to still be standing when winter comes." The kindling caught. Firelight began to fill the room. Jonas stood and faced her. "I won't lie to you, Freya. I don't have much to offer. This ranch is failing. I'm in debt to a man who'd love nothing more than to see me dead in a ditch. And I spent my last $2 on a woman I don't know, for reasons I can't fully explain." He paused. "But I'm still here, still fighting, and if you're willing to fight too, then maybe we've got a chance." She studied him for a long moment. He could see her working through it, calculating risks, weighing options, trying to decide if she could trust him even a little bit. "Finally, I'll take the bedroom. But only because I'm exhausted and I'm fairly certain I'll collapse if I don't sit down soon. Tomorrow we'll establish proper arrangements." "Fair enough." He heated some beans and salt pork. Nothing fancy. But it was hot and filling. They ate in silence. Freya consuming her food with the careful efficiency of someone who'd gone hungry before. When she was done, she looked marginally more human, some color returning to her pale cheeks. Shh." She gestured vaguely toward the bedroom, "Of course. There's water in the pitcher. Extra blanket in the chest if you need it." She stood, swaying slightly. Jonas resisted the urge to steady her. She was already skittish as a colt. He wouldn't add to her discomfort. At the bedroom door, she paused, looked back. "Jonas, yeah, thank you. For the $2. Before he could respond, she closed the door softly behind her. Jonas stood alone in the firelight. listening to the small sounds of her moving around the bedroom. The rustle of fabric, the creak of the bed, the long sigh that might have been relief or exhaustion or grief. He'd spent his last money on a woman who didn't trust him, for a ranch that was dying, in a fight he was probably going to lose. But for the first time in 3 years, the cabin didn't feel quite so empty. Outside, the Montana night settled in, vast and star-filled and full of possibilities both terrible and wonderful that neither of them could yet imagine. Dawn broke cold and gray over the Montana hills. Jonas woke on the floor near the fireplace, his back aching from the hard boards, and lay still for a moment. Listening to the silence, the cabin felt different somehow, occupied. There was another person breathing behind that closed bedroom door, another heartbeat sharing this space with him. He rose quietly, built up the fire, put coffee on to boil. The familiar motion steadied him, gave him something to do with the nervous energy thrumming through his veins. What did a man say to a wife he'd bought for $2? What did she expect from him? What did he expect from himself? The bedroom door opened as he was slicing bacon into the pan. Freya emerged, looking somehow both better and worse than she had the night before. Better because she'd clearly slept. Some of the exhaustion lifted from her features. Worse because the morning light was less forgiving than firelight, highlighting the hollows in her cheeks, the thinness of her wrists, the way her dress hung on a frame that had known real hunger. "Morning," Jonas said, keeping his voice neutral. "Good morning." She stood awkwardly in the doorway, clearly unsure of her place in this new world. "I should be doing that." "Doing what?" "Cooking. Isn't that part of the arrangement?" Jonas flipped the bacon, considered his words. "Freya, I didn't buy a servant. I can cook my own breakfast." "Then what did you buy?" The question came out sharper than she probably intended, edged with frustration and confusion. He looked at her, directly, honestly. "I don't know yet, but how about we figure it out together, instead of you assuming the worst of me right off?" She blinked, clearly taken aback, then slowly. Some of the rigidity left her shoulders. "That's fair. I apologize. No need. Coffee's ready if you want some." They ate breakfast in a silence that was less comfortable than cautious. Two strangers learning to orbit each other. Jonas watched her from the corner of his eye. Noticed how she ate slowly now that she wasn't starving. How she held her coffee cup with both hands as if warming herself. How her gaze kept drifting to the window and the land beyond. "Tell me about the ranch," she said finally. "The real situation. Not the version you gave those men in town." Jonas set down his fork. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. If I'm going to be here, I should understand what we're dealing with." The word hung in the air between them. Small but significant, so he told her about the land lease. How it wasn't actually his land. How he'd been squatting legally under territorial homestead laws for 8 years. But Silas Blackwood had bought the original deed from the widow who owned it, and now demanded $600 for the back rent Jonas supposedly owed. About the goats. How they were his only real income, selling their wool and meat. But how it barely covered basics. About the timber on his land. Old-growth pine, the kind that would make Blackwood rich if he could clear-cut it. About having 90 days to come up with $600, or lose everything. 38 goats, Freya said when he finished. "How many would you need to sell to raise 600? "All of them. At premium prices, which would leave me with nothing to rebuild with, and Blackwood knows this. He's counting on it. When I can't pay, he'll evict me. Take the land, cut the timber, make thousands." Freya absorbed this, her fingers tapping against her coffee cup in a rhythm that suggested calculation. "So you're trapped. Can't make enough to pay, can't sell your way out, can't run because you'd lose your legal claim to homestead. That's about sums it up. And Blackwood is waiting for you to fail so he can take everything for nothing." "He's not waiting. He's helping me fail. Every chance he gets." She looked at him with those sharp, intelligent eyes. "Then we need a different approach. Something he's not expecting. Like what? She stood, walked to the window, stared out at the ramshackle ranch, at the rusted forge near the barn. That forge. Does it work? Jonas blinked at the sudden shift. Don't know. Hasn't been used since I've been here. Previous owner was a blacksmith before he died. But I'm not. Never learned, I have. She turned to face him. My father was a master blacksmith in Stockholm. Trained me from age 12. I can work iron, steel, copper, anything. Hope flared in Jonas's chest. Dangerous and fragile as new flame, you're saying? I'm saying there's a mining camp 20 miles north. Silver Creek. Growing fast, they need tools, picks, shovels, nails, horseshoes. Things that break and wear out and need replacing constantly. She crossed her arms. Things I can make. Things we can sell. For actual money, Jonas stood slowly, walked to where she stood by the window. You really think you could enough in 90 days to pay off Blackwood? I don't know. But I know sitting here doing nothing guarantees we lose. At least this way we fight. She met his gaze steadily. You spent your last $2 on me. You said you didn't buy a servant. Fine. You bought a blacksmith. Let me work. Everything shifted in his chest. This woman, this strange, tall, fierce woman, was offering him hope when he had none. All right, he said. Let's see if that forge still works. They spent the morning examining the old smithy. The forge itself was in rough shape, brick crumbling, bellows rotted, anvil rusted but solid. The tools were scattered, broken, abandoned. But Freya moved through it all with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was looking at. We can fix this, she said, running her hands over the anvil. Most of it anyway. Need new bellows, new coal, some replacement tools. But the bones are good. How much would that cost? She calculated silently, $40. Maybe 50. Jonas felt his heart sink. I don't have $40. Then we borrow it. From who? Blackwood? He'd love that. Put me deeper in debt. No, she turned to him. From the community. From other ranchers. Small amounts from many people. We explain what we're doing. We offer them first pick of tools at cost. We build trust. And if they say no, then we find another way. But we don't give up. She said it with such absolute conviction that Jonas almost believed her, almost. Why are you doing this? He asked quietly. You could leave. Take your chances in town. Find work somewhere. You don't owe me anything, don't I? She stepped closer. You gave me dignity when I had none. You looked at me, actually looked at me. When everyone else saw a freak, or a joke, or a burden, her voice dropped. That's worth more than That's worth fighting for. Jonas couldn't breathe suddenly. Couldn't speak. This woman. God, this woman. Then we fight, he managed finally. Together, she agreed. They shook hands, formal. Firm, a contract sealed. The next 3 days were a blur of work. Jonas rode to neighboring ranches, explained the situation, asked for small loans. Some said no, but some said yes. Miguel Santos, older Mexican rancher, lean and weathered. He'd been watching Blackwood's tactics for years. $20, Miguel said. Counted it out carefully. You pay me back when you can. No interest, just beat that bastard. Dakota Redfeather, Lakota woman, widow, ran her own small ranch with 3 sons. $15, she said. And my boys will help repair your forge. They need to learn honest work. Augustus Hartwell. Everyone called him Gus. Broken rancher who'd lost half his land to Blackwood 2 years ago, $10. It's all I got. But it's yours. By the end of week 1, Jonas had $73. More than enough to start. Freya took the money, rode to town alone, came back with a wagon full of supplies, coal leather for new bellows, iron stock, tools to replace the broken ones. She worked 18 hours that first day, rebuilding the forge from memory and instinct. Jonas watched her, fascinated. She moved with absolute confidence here, no hesitation, no uncertainty. This was her world. Dakota's sons, strong young men, helped hoist the heavy stones, rebuild the chimney, construct the new bellows. By day 3, the forge was functional, not perfect, but functional. Freya lit it for the first time at dawn on day 4. Jonas stood watching as the coal caught, as heat began to rise. As Freya worked the bellows with steady rhythm, she picked up a piece of iron stock, placed it in the coals, waited. When it glowed orange-red, she pulled it out, set it on the anvil, raised the hammer, and brought it down. The ring of metal on metal echoed across the valley. Again, again, again. Her movements were precise, economical, each strike deliberate. She was making a horseshoe. Basic. But watching her work, Jonas felt what he hadn't felt in years. Awi, she finished the shoe in 20 minutes. Plunged it hissing into the water bucket. Held it up to examine. Perfect. Well, she asked, not looking at him. You're incredible, Jonas said honestly. She did look then. Surprise flickering across her face. Like she wasn't used to compliments. Like she didn't know what to do with one. It's just a horseshoe. It's hope, Jonas corrected. It's a chance. It's everything. She set the shoe aside carefully. Then let's make more. Week 2 was production. Freya worked from dawn until dark, making horseshoes. Nails. Simple tools. Jonas handled the goats in the morning. Then spent afternoons as her assistant, learning, helping, keeping the fire hot and the iron ready. They fell into a rhythm, comfortable in its simplicity. She would point. He would hand her tools. She would nod. He would pump the bellows. They didn't talk much while working, didn't need to. But at night, after they'd eaten, after Freya had retreated to the bedroom, and Jonas lay on the floor near the dying fire, he found himself thinking about her, about the way she moved, strong and sure, about the concentration on her face when she worked, absolute focus, about the small smile she got when a piece came out perfectly. He found himself wanting to make her smile more, found himself listening for her, breathing through the bedroom door, just to know she was still there. This was dangerous. He knew it was dangerous. She was his wife in name only. A business arrangement. She'd said so herself. Letting it become more would complicate everything. But God watching her that day. Hair tied back, face smudged with soot, arms strong as she swung the hammer, watching her look up and catch him staring and raise one eyebrow in question. Watching her, he was already lost. Week 3 arrived with quiet progress. The forge hummed day and night. Freya's rhythm steady. Jonas learning 20 items the first week, 25 the second, 30 by week 3, the money jar filling. Slowly, painfully slowly, but filling $100, 120, 150. Jonas watched Freya work one evening. The way firelight painted her face gold, the concentration in her eyes, the strength in every movement. She looked up, caught him staring, raised one eyebrow. What? Nothing. Just you're incredible at this. She smiled. Small. Shy. It's just metalwork. It's magic. The smile grew, and Jonas felt his heart do something dangerous. What he couldn't take back. He was falling in love with his $2 bride and he didn't know how to stop, didn't want to stop. Outside. Montana winter crept closer. 67 days until Blackwood's deadline. They had $150. Needed $450 more, but for the first time in 3 years, Jonas believed they might actually make it. Morning came too soon after another long night of work. Jonas stood examining their progress. The money jar on the kitchen table. Coins gleaming in early light, $150 in 3 weeks. It was working, slowly. But working. Freya emerged from the bedroom. Hair still loose. Face softer in sleep than in waking hours. How much time do we have left? She asked. Jonas had to calculate. 67 days until Blackwood's deadline. And how much money have we made so far? $150. From 3 weeks of sales, she did the math silently. So we need $450 more. In 67 days, she looked at him. That's about $7 a day, every day. For over 2 months, we've been averaging closer to 8. If we can maintain that, if, she echoed. The word hung heavy between them. So many things could go wrong. Equipment could break. Supplies could run out. Winter could come early. Blackwood could interfere. Any one of 100 disasters could derail them. We'll make it. Trying to sound confident? You don't know that, no. But I believe it. That has to count for something. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. All right. I'll believe it too. Week 4 began with new challenges. Freya's hammer broke. Handle splintered mid-swing. She nearly broke her hand. 2 days lost finding and installing a replacement. Then the coal supplier in town refused to sell to them. Blackwood's orders, he said. Not quite meeting Jonas's eyes. Can't do business with you anymore? Jonas rode 20 miles to the next town. Found another supplier. Who charged double, their profit margin cut in half. But they adapted, bought less coal, worked more carefully. Made smaller items that used less fuel. Still they progressed. $175. $225. Each sale felt like victory. Each coin like proof they could win this. Then on day 30, everything changed. Word filtered back from town. Blackwood had been asking questions about their forge, their sales, their progress. Jacob Thornton brought the news. A thin, nervous man who sometimes hauled timber for Blackwood. He rode up to the ranch at dusk, looking over his shoulder like he was being followed. Jonas. Miss Bergstrom. I need to talk to you. They gathered in the barn. Away from prying eyes, Jacob was sweating despite the cool evening air. Blackwood knows what you're doing. Knows you're close to making the payment. How close does he think we are? Freya asked. Don't know exactly, but he's preparing something. I don't know what. But he's not the type to just let you win. Jonas felt his stomach tighten. Why are you telling us this? Jacob's face crumpled. Because my wife. She's sick. Real sick. Lung fever. Blackwood promised me medicine if I kept him informed about things in the valley. He looked at the ground. But he lied. Gave me colored water instead of real medicine. She's getting worse. And I can't keep helping a man who'd let my wife die just to save a few dollars on medicine. His voice broke. I'm done with him. I wanted to warn you. Whatever he's planning, it's coming soon. Dakota Redfeather had been listening from the shadows. She stepped forward now. Where is she? Your wife? Jacob looked up. Surprised? At our cabin, 3 miles east. But she can't be moved. Too weak. I'll go see her, Dakota said. I know medicine. Real medicine. She looked at Jonas. If his wife is really sick, if he's telling the truth, then he's not our enemy. Blackwood is. Jonas studied Jacob's face, saw genuine fear there, genuine regret. All right, he said finally. Dakota goes to check on your wife. You stay here and help us. If you're lying, if this is some trick, you won't like what happens next. Jacob's relief was palpable. Thank you. I swear. I'll do whatever you need. Over the next 2 weeks, their group grew. Miggle's nephews joined. Young men. Strong. Willing to stand guard against Blackwood's men. Gus Hartwell spent more time at the ranch, helping with repairs, with the goats, with anything that freed up Jonas and Freya to focus on the forge. Dakota's eldest son, Little Wolf, a quiet boy who barely spoke but worked like 3 men. He learned to pump the bellows, to sort coal, to prepare iron stock, and Jacob worked like a man possessed, hauling supplies, standing night watch, doing whatever grunt work needed doing, trying to atone for his past. Dakota confirmed his wife was indeed sick. Began treating her with herbs and tinctures. Within days, the woman showed improvement. Jacob cried when he saw her sitting up, eating soup, smiling. I owe you everything, he told Jonas and Freya. Whatever you need. I'm yours. The forge became a gathering place. People would stop by, neighbors from across the valley, to see the operation, to place orders, to offer food, fresh bread, preserves, venison. Some brought firewood for the cabin. Some just brought themselves. Their presence, their solidarity against Blackwood, it stopped being just Jonas and Freya against the world. Started being a community, a family. This is what he fears most, Miguel said one evening. Watching everyone work together. What? Jonas asked unity. People working together instead of competing. Supporting each other instead of trying to survive alone. He gestured at the scene around them. Blackwood thrives on isolation, on people being too scared or too proud to ask for help. But this terrifies him. Freya looked around at their growing group. Then we should do more of it. What do you mean? I mean, we stop hiding. Stop being defensive. We show everyone what we're doing. Invite them to be part of it. She turned to Jonas. We throw a barn raising. Get everyone together. Build something permanent. Show Blackwood we're not going anywhere. Jonas felt that dangerous hope again. You want to rebuild the forge. Make it permanent. I want to build something that lasts beyond the next 90 days. Something that says we believe in a future. Here, she smiled. What do you say? He couldn't help but smile back. I say let's do it. They set the date for 3 weeks out. Sent word throughout the valley. The response was overwhelming. Families committed to coming, to helping, to being part of something bigger than themselves. In the meantime, work continued. Freya pushed herself harder than ever. 16-hour days. Sometimes 18. Making tools, filling orders, their reserves. $250, $275, $300. The money jar was getting heavy. But so was the toll on Freya. Jonas found her one afternoon sitting outside the barn, staring at nothing. He'd never seen her sit during daylight hours before. Freya? She didn't look at him. I can't do this anymore. The words hit him like a physical blow. What? I'm so tired, Jonas. So tired I can't think straight, can't see straight. Yesterday I nearly walked into the fire. Didn't even realize until Miguel pulled me back. She finally looked at him. Her eyes were hollow. Dark circles so deep they looked like bruises. I'm going to hurt myself. Or someone else. Or make a mistake that costs us everything. And I don't know how to stop. Jonas knelt in front of her. Then we rest. We can't afford to rest. We need you alive and functional more than we need. One more day of production. He took her hands. Rough and blistered and strong. Freya, you've been working 20-hour days for a month. Your body can't sustain that. You're going to break. And if you break, we lose everything anyway. But no. His voice was firm. We rest. One full day. You sleep, really sleep. Then we come back stronger. She looked at him with desperation in her eyes. What if we run out of time? Then we run out of time fighting. Not because you collapsed from exhaustion, he stood. Pulled her up with him. Come on. Inside. Sleep. That's an order. You can't order me. I'm not your partner, he interrupted. You're my partner, and partners look out for each other. So I'm looking out for you, she wavered. Exhaustion won. One day, she said finally. But that's all. One day, he agreed. He walked her to the cabin. To the bedroom. She collapsed onto the bed fully clothed, was asleep before he closed the door. Jonas stood in the main room, listening to her breathe, deep and even and finally peaceful. His chest cracked open. This woman, this impossible, stubborn, brilliant woman, was killing herself to save his ranch, to save his dream. And somewhere in the past month, somewhere between the destroyed equipment and the midnight work sessions and the quiet moments when she'd look up from her hammer and catch him watching, somewhere in there, he'd fallen completely in love with her. That night while Freya slept, Jonas sat with Miguel and Dakota around a fire outside. She's going to work herself to death, Dakota said quietly. You know that. I know. So what are we going to do about it? Jonas poked at the fire with a stick. Watched sparks rise into the dark. I don't know. She won't stop. Won't slow down. It's like she's trying to prove something, she is, Dakota said. She's trying to prove she's worth more than $2. The words landed heavy. Because they were true. She doesn't need to prove that, Jonas said. To you, maybe. But to herself? Dakota shook her head. That's different. She spent her whole life being told she's worthless. Too big, too strong, too different. And then you buy her for $2. The lowest bid in auction history. She looked at him directly. Every hammer strike is her trying to show the world she's valuable. That she matters, that she's worth something. Miguel nodded slowly. My wife? Before she died, she told me something. Said love isn't about the easy times. It's about the impossible ones. About who stands beside you when everything falls apart. He met Jonas's eyes. Freya's standing beside you. Through all this, that's real love. Don't forget that. No matter what happens. Jonas felt his throat tighten. I need to tell her. Yes, Dakota said. You do, but what if she doesn't feel the same? What if this really is just business to her? Miguel chuckled, the mountain man and his giant. Most obvious love story in the territory. And somehow the only two people who don't know it yet. Dakota stood. Tell her. Before it's too late. Before either of you breaks under the weight of not saying it. She walked into the darkness, leaving Jonas alone with his thoughts. And the knowledge that she was right. He had to tell Freya, had to risk everything on honesty. Just like he'd risked his last $2 on faith. Day 35, Freya woke at noon disoriented. Confused, she stumbled out of the bedroom. Hair wild. Dress wrinkled. What time is it? Jonas looked up from the bread he was slicing. Noon? Jonas, I've lost. We've lost. We've lost nothing. You needed sleep. You got it. Now you'll be able to work smarter instead of just harder. She looked like she wanted to argue, but her stomach growled loudly, betraying her. Jonas pushed a plate toward her. Eat first. Yell at me after. She sat, ate mechanically. But Jonas could see color returning to her face. Life coming back to her eyes. When she finished, she looked at him. Really looked, thank you. For what? For making me rest. For caring whether I survive this. Of course I care. The words came out more intense than he'd intended. Freya blinked. Something shifting in her expression. Jonas. We should get back to work, he said quickly, standing, needing to move, because if he let himself look, he'd say things he couldn't take back. Right, Freya said slowly. Work, but her eyes followed him. Thoughtful, curious, like she was seeing something new. The barn raising happened on day 42. 50 people showed up, families from across the valley. Ranchers, farmers, even some folks from town who'd heard about the project. They came with tools, lumber, food, energy. By noon, they'd torn down the old forge completely. By evening, they'd built something new. Solid stone foundation, proper chimney, reinforced walls. A roof that wouldn't collapse, permanent, built to last. Freya stood looking at it as the sun set, eyes shining with unshed tears. It's beautiful, she whispered. Miguel came up beside her. It's yours. Built by people who believe in you. Who want you to succeed, he gestured at the crowd. You're not alone anymore. Neither of you are. That night they celebrated music, dancing, food shared freely, stories told and retold about beating Blackwood. Jonas danced with Freya under the stars, held her close. I can't believe this is real, she whispered. It's real. All these people. Helping us. Believing in us. They believe in you, Jonas corrected. You gave them something to believe in. She pulled back slightly, looked at him. We gave them something. Together, yeah, he agreed softly. Together, the moment stretched, fragile and perfect. Then someone called Jonas's name. The moment broke. But something had shifted, something neither of them could name yet, but both could feel. Week 6 brought unexpected complications. A stranger rode up to the ranch. Tall man, well-dressed, 50 maybe. With intelligent eyes and a careful way of moving. Jonas Graves? That's me. Name's William Cobb. I'm a buyer for the mining companies. Heard about your operation. About your blacksmith, he looked toward the new forge where Freya was working. I'd like to make a deal. Jonas tensed. What kind of deal? Exclusive contract. You provide all the tools for my camps. Picks, shovels, hammers. Whatever we need, I guarantee purchase of 200 items per month. At $4 per item, Jonas did the math. $800 a month. More than enough to pay Blackwood and rebuild. More than enough to thrive, That's generous. It's business. Your blacksmith makes quality work. I've seen samples. I need quality. We both win. Cobb pulled out a contract, signed today. First payment on delivery of 50 items. Due in 2 weeks. Jonas took the contract. Read it carefully. It was legitimate. Standard terms. Fair, almost too fair. Why us? Jonas asked. There are other blacksmiths, not good ones, not out here, and not ones who work as hard as your wife apparently does. Cobb smiled. I admire persistence, Mr. Graves, and I like betting on people who refuse to quit. So, do we have a deal? Jonas wanted to sign, wanted it desperately, but something nagged at him. Give me 1 day. To discuss with my partner, Cobb nodded. 1 day. Then the offer expires. He rode off, leaving Jonas holding the contract that could save everything. That night Jonas showed Freya the contract. She read it 3 times. It's perfect, she said. I know. So why do you look worried? Jonas hesitated, because perfect doesn't exist. Not out here. Not for people like us. Freya set the contract down. You think it's a trap? I think Blackwood has spent the last month making our lives hell. And suddenly a stranger shows up offering exactly what we need. Exactly when we need it. He shook his head. Coincidences like that don't happen. So what do? We investigate. Miguel knows people, can ask around. Find out if William Cobb is real. If he's legitimate, and if he is, then we sign. And we save the ranch, and if he's not? Jonas met her eyes. Then we keep fighting. Same as always. Miguel returned the next morning, his face grim. William Cobb is real. He's a buyer. Been working the territory for 10 years. Jonas felt relief flood through him. So it's legitimate, yes. And no, Miguel dismounted. Cobb's legitimate. But he also owes Blackwood money. A lot of money. Gambling debts from Silver Creek Relief evaporated. So Blackwood sent him. Probably. The contract is real. But there's likely a clause somewhere that gives Blackwood control. Or leverage. Or something. Miguel handed Jonas the contract. Read it again, carefully. Look for the trap. Jonas and Freya spent 3 hours going through every line, every word. Finally Freya found it. Buried in Section 7. Subsection C. In the event of non-delivery of agreed-upon items, the buyer reserves the right to claim materials and equipment as compensation for breach of contract. Materials and equipment, Freya read aloud. That's vague. Intentionally vague, Jonas said. They could claim the forge, the tools, hell, the whole ranch as equipment used to produce the items. So if we miss even one deadline, Blackwood gets everything anyway. They stared at the contract, so close, so impossibly close to salvation. And yet still a trap. We could modify it, Freya said. Strike that clause. Offer different terms. Cobb won't accept. He needs that clause. For Blackwood, then we refuse. Jonas nodded. We refuse. Freya reached across the table. Took his hand. We'll find another way, I know. And he did, because they always did. When Cobb returned that afternoon, Jonas handed back the contract. Unsigned, I appreciate the offer. But the terms don't work for us. Cobb's pleasant expression didn't change. That's unfortunate. The offer was quite generous. Generous with a trap in Section 7. Now Cobb's smile faltered. Just slightly. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. And you can tell. Blackwood, his tricks are getting predictable. Cobb's face hardened. You're making a mistake, Graves. That contract was your best chance. Then, I guess we'll take our chances elsewhere. Cobb rode off without another word, leaving Jonas and Freya standing in the yard. We just refused $800 a month. Freya said quietly, I know, we might have just lost our last real chance to save the ranch. I know that too. She turned to him. So why don't you look upset? Jonas smiled, because we're still standing. Still fighting. Still refusing to let Blackwood win through tricks and manipulation. He took her hand. That's worth more than any contract. Freya squeezed back. You're either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. She laughed. Actually laughed. The sound surprised them both. We're going to lose everything, aren't we? She said. But she was still smiling. Probably. But we'll lose it honestly. On our own terms. I can live with that. They stood there. Hands linked, watching the sun set over the mountains, and for just that moment everything felt possible again. Week 8 brought them to $400 saved. 200 to go. 30 days left. They were going to make it. Actually make it. Then on day 60. 7 days before Blackwood's deadline, disaster struck. Not sabotage this time. Just bad luck. Just Montana being Montana. The chimney in the new forge collapsed. A structural flaw they hadn't seen during the barn raising. Bricks falling inward, crushing the fire. Nearly crushing Freya. Jonas pulled her out just in time. She was unhurt. But the forge was destroyed. Agon, and this time they didn't have time to rebuild. Freya stood staring at the wreckage. "We're done," she said numbly. 7 days left, no forge. "We're done, no. We'll find a way." "What way, Jonas? We can't make tools without heat. Can't make heat without a forge. Can't build a forge in 7 days." She was right. And he knew it, but he couldn't accept it. Wouldn't. There has to be something, some other way to make money. To get those last $200, there isn't. She turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "We lost, after everything. We lost." Jonas pulled her into his arms. Let her cry, let her grieve the death of hope, and tried desperately to think of something, anything. Miguel showed up an hour later, took in the scene. The collapsed forge. The devastation on their faces. "I have $15 saved," he said quietly. "It's yours. I have 12. Dakota added. She'd arrived right behind him. 20 from me, Gus said. Appearing from the barn, Jonas felt his throat tighten. $47 from their friends, a dead to their 400. 447 total. Still 153 short of 600. "Still not enough. I can't take your money," Jonas said. "It's not taking if we're giving," Miguel replied. "We're family now." "Family helps family," Freya repeated. Like she was testing the word, she looked at Jonas. "We're still short, even with their help. By over $100, I know. So what do we do?" And Jonas, for the first time since this whole thing started, had absolutely no idea what to do. That night, Jonas couldn't sleep. Lay on the floor staring at the ceiling. Freya was in the bedroom, also awake. He could hear her moving around, restless 6 days now, until Silas Blackwood came to collect. Until they lost everything. Jonas got up, moved to the window, stared out at the dark shape of the mountains against the stars. The bedroom door opened. Freya emerged. Wrapped in a blanket, hair loose. She stood beside him at the window. "Can't sleep either?" No, they stood in silence. Then Freya spoke. There might be a way. Jonas turned to look at her. "What way?" "The goats. We sell them all, right now. Emergency sale, whatever we can get, Freya. Those goats are our only income. Our only way to survive after we pay Blackwood. If we pay Blackwood," she corrected. "Selling the goats might get us the last 150. Might. But either way, if we don't pay him, we lose the land anyway. So what's the point of keeping goats we can't graze?" She turned to face him fully. "I say we bet it all. One more time. We sell the goats, pay Blackwood. Then we figure out how to survive after, with no income, no forge, no goats, nothing. With each other," she said simply. "We'll have each other. That's not nothing." Jonas stared at her. This woman, who kept finding courage when his ran out. "You're sure?" "I'm terrified. But yes, I'm sure." He kissed her, hard and desperate and full of everything he couldn't say. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. "All right," he said. "We sell the goats." Dawn broke gray and cold. Jonas and Miguel rounded up all 38 goats, herded them into the pen. This was everything, his entire herd. Built over 8 years. Each goat had a name, a personality. There was old Bessie, first goat he'd ever bought. Stubborn and mean, but a good mother, and Buck, the lead male. Ornery but protective of the herd, and Clementine, Freya's favorite, who'd follow her around like a dog. Selling them felt like betrayal. But necessary betrayal. "Where are we taking them?" Miguel asked. "Silver Creek. Mining camp. They always need meat and milk. That's a 2-day drive." "I know. We leave now. Noon today." Jonas calculated aloud. "Drive today and tomorrow. Arrive Silver Creek evening of day 2. Sell morning of day 3. Ride back day 3 and 4. Get home dawn of day 5. He looked at the sky. Deadline is day 7, noon. That gives us 2 days buffer. Cutting it close. We don't have choice. They set out within the hour. Jonas, Miguel, and 38 goats. Freya stayed behind to guard the ranch. Dakota stayed with her. For protection, the drive was hard. Goats didn't herd like cattle. They scattered, wandered, climbed things they shouldn't. It took all of Jonas's skill and Miguel's patience to keep them moving. They made 12 miles the first day, camped in a narrow valley. Goats bunched together against the cold. Jonas sat by the fire. Couldn't eat, could barely think. This was it, last desperate gamble. If the goats sold for less than $150, if they couldn't get back in time, if anything went wrong, it was over. You love her, Miguel said. Not a question. Jonas looked up. Freya? You love her, yeah. I do, good. She loves you too. Anyone with eyes can see it. Miguel poked at the fire, my wife. Before she died, she told me something. Said love isn't about the easy times. It's about the impossible ones. About who stands beside you when everything falls apart. He looked at Jonas. Freya's standing beside you. Through all this, that's real love. Don't forget that. No matter what happens tomorrow. Jonas nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. They reached Silver Creek by noon the next day. The mining camp was chaos, hundreds of men. Tents and shacks everywhere. Mud and noise and desperations. The livestock buyer was a hard man named Garrett. He looked over the goats with a critical eye. 38 head, mixed ages. Decent condition, he calculated mentally. I'll give you $40 for the lot. Jonas's heart sank. 40? They're worth at least 150, maybe in normal times. But I got 3 other sellers this week. Market's flooded. 40's my offer. Take it or leave it. Jonas looked at Miguel to $40. Plus the 47 from their friends. Plus, they're 487 total. Still 113 short of 600. Still not enough. We need more, Jonas said. Please, I'm begging you. $100, and they're yours. Garrett's expression didn't change. 40. That's it. I'm not running a charity. Jonas wanted to argue, wanted to plead. But he could see it wouldn't matter. Garrett had made up his mind. Fine. 40. The exchange was quick, bills counted. Goats transferred. Jonas watched his herd walk away. 8 years of work, gone for $40. Miguel put a hand on his shoulder. We tried. It wasn't enough. No. But we tried. They rode back in silence, racing against time. Had to get home before the deadline. Had to at least be there when Blackwood came. Even if they couldn't pay. Even if it was over. They rode through the night, horses exhausted. Men, more so, made it back in 3 days instead of 4, plived the animals to their limits, and beyond, reached the ranch at dawn. 2 days before deadline, day 5 of 7. Freya ran out to meet them. One look at Jonas's face told her everything. We're short, she said. Not a question. $113. She closed her eyes. We tried. Yeah, they stood in the yard. Morning sun painting everything gold. Their last morning here. When will he come? Freya asked. Day 7, noon. When the lease officially expires. Then we have 2 days. To do what? She looked at him. To say goodbye. To this place. To this dream. Her voice broke. To everything we fought for. Jonas pulled her close. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't. Couldn't save this. You saved me, she whispered. That's more important. They held each other as the sun climbed higher. As their last hours on the ranch ticked away, Dakota emerged from the cabin. Fossick grim. Riders coming from the east, Blackwood, early. Of course he'd come early. Couldn't even give them their last hours in peace. Silas Blackwood rode up with 6 men. All armed, all looking pleased. He dismounted slowly, savoring the moment. Graves. Miss Bergstrom. Beautiful morning, isn't it? Jonas said nothing. I assume you have my $600? We have 487. Blackwood's smile widened. 487. How unfortunate. That's, let me see, $113 short. He pulled out the lease document, which means, as of noonday 7, this land, this cabin, everything becomes mine. He looked around with satisfaction. I'll give you until sunset today to clear out. Take what you can carry. Leave the rest, we need more time, Freya said. Please. One more week. We can get the last 113. Just one more. No. Blackwood's voice was flat. Final, you had 90 days. You failed. That's not my problem. He remounted. Sunset. After that, my men will remove you by force if necessary. He started to turn, then paused. Oh, and Graves. Thank you. This land is worth 10 times what you owed. The timber alone will make me rich. So thank you for being so stubborn. Made the victory that much sweeter. He rode off. His men followed, leaving Jonas and Freya standing in the wreckage of their dreams. Dakota and Miguel tried to comfort them, offered places to stay, work, support, but Jonas barely heard them, was already mentally calculating how to pack 8 years of life into a few hours. What to take, what to leave, how to start over with nothing, Agon. Freya was silent, had retreated into herself, back to that empty expression from the auction. Like she'd gone somewhere Jonas couldn't reach. We should start packing, he said quietly. She nodded, didn't speak. They moved into the cabin, started sorting through belongings. Jonas found the wooden box where he kept important papers. Opened it, there at the bottom. The 2 silver dollars, polished and preserved. The $2 he'd spent on Freya. He picked them up, felt their weight. $2 had bought him everything. Love, partnership, hope, and now they were worth nothing. Just metal, just memory. Noon came and went. The lease officially expired. They were now trespassers on land they'd fought so hard for. 1 o'clock, 2 still packing. Moving like automatons. 3 o'clock, a rider appeared. Not Blackwood. Someone else, a man in a suit. Clean-shaven. Official looking. He dismounted, looked around. Jonas Graves? That's me. My name is Edmund Price. I'm with the Territorial Land Office. He pulled out papers. I'm here about your land claim. Jonas felt confusion. What about it? There's been an irregularity. With Silas Blackwood's deed. Hope sparked. Dangerous. Painful. What kind of irregularity? The woman who sold Blackwood this deed. Mrs. Sarah Hendricks. She didn't actually own the land. Price unfolded a map. According to our records, this property was originally homesteaded by a man named Thomas Bergstrom in 1867. He filed proper claim, lived here 3 years, met all requirements. Jonas's mind raced Bergstrom. Freya's last name. When Bergstrom died in 1870, the land should have passed to his next of kin. Not reverted to the territory, and definitely not to Mrs. Hendricks, who had no legal claim to it. Price looked at Freya. You're Freya Bergstrom, correct? She nodded, stunned. And Thomas Bergstrom was your father? Yes. He died in a forge accident, but I thought that was in Stockholm. I didn't know he'd come to America. He came here first, Price said. Filed the homestead claim. Established residence. Then apparently went back to bring you over. But died before he could. He handed her a document. This is the original claim, filed in Thomas Bergstrom's name, with a note that he intended to bring his daughter Freya to join him. Freya stared at the paper, hands shaking. My father owned this land? Yes. And when he died, it passed to you. His sole heir. Price pulled out more documents. I've spent the last 6 weeks investigating Blackwood's deed, how he obtained it. The trail led here. To you, he smiled. Miss Bergstrom. You are the legal owner of this property. Have been since your father's death. You just didn't know it. Silence, Dobinsolt shocked silence. Then Freya started laughing. Not happy laughter, hysterical laughter. The laughter of someone who'd been pushed past all reasonable limits. I own the land, she gasped. We've been fighting to save land I already owned. Jonas started laughing too, because what else could they do? Miguel joined in, then Dakota. Soon they were all doubled over, laughing until tears streamed, until their sides hurt. Price watched them with concern. Are you all right? We're perfect, Jonas managed. We're perfect. An hour later they rode to town, all of them, priest leading. They went straight to the sheriff's office. Found Blackwood there, drinking whiskey with the sheriff. Both men looked up as Price entered. Blackwood. I need to speak with you. I'm busy. This won't wait. Price unrolled the documents. Your deed to the Graves is property. It's fraudulent. Blackwood's face darkened. That's absurd. I bought it legally from Sarah Hendricks, who had no legal right to sell it. The land belongs to Freya Bergstrom, daughter of the original homesteader. Has belonged to her since 1870. He set the papers on the desk. Your lease agreement with Mr. Graves is void. Your claim to the land is void. You have no legal standing here. Blackwood stood fox purple with rage. You can't. I paid good money for that deed. Then you were defrauded. Take it up with Mrs. Hendricks. But the land is not yours, will never be yours. Price turned to Freya. Miss Bergstrom, the property is yours. Free and clear. No debts, no leases. Yours. Freya stepped forward, looked Blackwood in the eye. I want you off my land. Today. And I want compensation for every act of sabotage. Every destroyed tool, every difficulty you caused us. You can't prove I have witnesses, Jonas interrupted. Signed statements from a dozen people. Who can testify to everything you've done? Blackwood looked between them, trapped. Finally he slumped. How much? $200. Freya said. For damages, that's robbery. That's justice. Pay it or I file criminal charges. Blackwood pulled out his wallet, counted bills with shaking hands, slapped them on the desk. There. We're done. Not quite, Price said. You're also banned from purchasing any property in this territory for 5 years. Pending investigation into your other land deals. He smiled coldly. Something tells me we'll find more irregularities. Blackwood stormed out, defeated, humiliated. Gone. They walked out into afternoon sunlight. Jonas felt like he was floating. We won, Freya said. Sounded dazed. We actually won. Yeah, my father. He did this. Tried to make a home for us. And I never knew. She looked at the papers in her hands. He died trying to build me a future. And I've been living in it without knowing. Jonas put his arm around her. He'd be proud of you. Of how you fought for it. We fought for it. Yeah. We did. The celebration lasted 3 days. The whole valley turned out. Music, dancing, food, stories about how they'd beaten Blackwood, how the giant and the mountain man had won against impossible odds. Jonas danced with Freya under the stars, held her close. I love you, he said. Not asking, not hoping, just stating truth. She pulled back to look at him. I love you too. Have for weeks. Maybe from the moment you bid on me. Only took us 90 days to admit it. We're slow learners. He kissed her, long and deep and full of promise. Around them people cheered. But Jonas barely heard. He was too busy holding his future. 6 months later, the forge was rebuilt, permanent this time. Stone and steel, built to last. Freya's business thrived oars from 3 territories. She'd hired 2 apprentices, teaching them the trade. The goat herd had been rebuilt. Bigger than before, the cabin expanded. 2 new rooms. A proper kitchen. It was a home now, not just shelter. Real home. Jonas proposed properly one evening on their porch. Under the stars, I know we're already married, but I want to do it right this time, with vows we choose, with our family watching. Freya said yes. They married again 2 weeks later, in the valley. Under Montana sky, their whole community there. And when Jonas kissed his wife, his partner, his everything, he thought about those 2 silver dollars. Best investment he'd ever made. 2 years later, Freya was pregnant. They had a girl named her Hope Margaret Graves. Because hope was what had saved them. What had brought them together. What had built their future. Jonas held his daughter for the first time, looked at Freya, at their land, at the community they'd built, at everything $2 had bought him. Thank you, he whispered to Freya. For what? For being worth everything. For standing. For fighting. For loving me, she smiled. That rare, beautiful smile. You spent $2 on faith. I spent my life proving it was the best investment you ever made. Best investment anyone ever made. Above them, Montana sky stretched endless. Full of stars, full of hope, full of a future built on 2 silver dollars. And all the love they'd bought.